Based on the research we did into the occurrence of people in automobiles and their engines would stop. At first, most of the pseudo-investigators said, well, in his panic, he turned the motor off. Well, that's kind of nice, but after we reviewed 1,000 cases on paper, not individually, we found that 1,000 people are not going to just turn the motor off. So we decided to investigate, and at that time, 2 years ago, we found that there's a magnetic disturbance, and that magnetic disturbance somehow interferes with the car. But it gave us a tool, and what we've done is we have a detector which will, as a result of the magnetic field interference, close a relay and either automatically set off a camera or set off an alarm. And as a result, we're capable now of tracking them by setting up several of these detectors. We're going to use this to get the photographic evidence that we want.
Describe to me your sighting.
Okay, it came up over here, hesitated over the river, as you see here, and then zoomed to the atomic site, stayed over the atomic site, and this is not the first time we've seen them over the atomic site.
What about the future? What do you think the future holds for us if we are visited as it has been predicted?
I can't go on just if we're. I must go on when we're, because I put a lot of preparation to it. And I also would like to establish the fact that there's no doubt in my mind at all. It would have to be, as I mentioned before, scientific cowardice for someone to look at all the evidence and say either there was a very highly advanced civilization preceding ours, or extraterrestrials came. Now, when we look at our ancient scriptures and they all say, yeah, they shall return, and now we're seeing evidence that they're attempting to come back, and many people that are level-headed, and I consider myself level-headed, I consider myself intelligent, are preparing for it. It's inevitable that they are going to contact us.
What will happen?
I think that there'll be a 8th day of creation type. I think that that's a catch-all phrase, meaning our next stage. We have gone as far as we can on this particular planet by ourselves, and now we need help to get us beyond it.
At the Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, near the giant Saturn V rocket, I met with Dr. Richard Yinger.
I think it tells us something about where we are going as a species. Space, as I see it, and the travel into space, is a natural part of our evolution as human beings.
Do you think we're trying to find something?
I think we're trying to find our way home is what we're trying to do. I think that what we are part of a tremendously long migration out of what we think might have been the Olduvai Gorge in Africa, where we might have begun as some ancestor, and now we've migrated to virtually every part of the planet, and there was no place else to go. We're going out into space. I feel sometimes like we are something like the salmon who are trying to spawn back upstream to get back to their original place, and I think this is what we are doing as human beings. What I'm saying is
Richard Yinger is a professor of social sciences and the director of the Exosociology Institute in Lake Worth, Florida.
Coming to Earth.
Dr. Yinger, you are an exosociologist.
That's right, yes.
What does that mean?
It means the study of the possibility of life in outer space as a social reality. In other words, what I've been trying to do is to study it as a social fact rather than as some kind of a concrete fact. And I took this from the area of exobiology. In exobiology, we have astronomers who are also biologists who are looking for life in outer space in terms of biology. We need to look at the concept of life in outer space and what impact it could have. If you research in archaeology and anthropology, you find that we are the most mysterious thing we know of in the universe right now as human beings.
We may be spacemen ourselves?
We, in fact, could be spacemen. What we find in studying archaeology and anthropology is that there is no evidence to prove that we, as human beings, originated on this Earth. There is all kinds of evidence to suggest that we might have originated somewhere in outer space, that indeed there could have been beings from outer space who came here millions of years ago and produced this thing that we now call the human being. Our brain is one of the great mysteries of this universe. We don't know. We cannot explain within the theory of organic evolution how we got our brain. It just doesn't fit in. It evolved too fast. Right now, we have a brain that we aren't using the full potential. A million years ago, we weren't even beginning to use the full potential of the brain. Now we know that if we don't use something, it will atrophy, it will disappear. And yet the brain has not disappeared. Something keeps it going. It's like it was built for a purpose that we have not yet reached, and we are, I think, moving toward that purpose.
Is it within the realm of possibility that we will become the visiting astronauts to other worlds?
Yes.
As we were supposed to have been visited?
Yes. We are doing genetic research right now at Harvard and MIT universities. We don't know what's going to happen with that genetic research. It's very dangerous. So what we're going to have to do is go to some other place to do the research. The first logical place would be the moon. We could go to the moon, set up laboratories, remote-controlled laboratories, do our research, and then from there we would move out into space and do even more elaborate experiments. And maybe we would eventually go into another part of the universe, find a planet very much like Earth, and begin to do very, very fancy kind of experiments, which would then produce in maybe 4 million years the same kind of creature that we are here on this Earth today. I think that what we see happening now is the closing of the circle. We have now reached the point where we have the technology to do what those ancient astronauts might have done when they came to the Earth. And so we, like a flower sowing its seeds, are going into the universe to sow another seed. It's almost like this is a garden, and we're moving on now to plant and sow a new garden.
Thank you, Doctor. Do you have any thoughts on the ability for us to contact UFOs through telepathy, through our ability to contact them mentally?
Though I am in total agreement that we are heading towards the point where they will contact us. They will not just land somewhere and run the risk of being mugged. They will land somewhere where they're going to be greeted by people who are perhaps in the right, what you call, frame of mind and with the right interests.
You mean there are people being prepared?
Oh, obviously, yeah.
To receive an extraterrestrial visitor?
I'm being prepared, to be specific, I'm being prepared for the frame of mind that is necessary to greet a extraterrestrial visitor. That's as specific as I can be, right?
That's pretty specific. Do you think that some of us, or maybe all of us, are being sent messages by these beings, these things from outer space?
I think some of us are. I think that there are some of us who have come to that point in our own lives where our own consciousness has been literally raised to the point where the difference between us and the extraterrestrials is very, very narrow. And I think that they feel that kind of sympathy that a person could project and could be actually giving them messages. I have felt this myself. I have felt this very intensely
Do
myself,
you feel
personally.
that you're one of them?
Yes, personally.
That your level of consciousness has been raised to that point?
Yes.
Do you think that you will be contacted? That you will be one of those that will be contacted?
And not necessarily myself. I think that my mission, if there is such a thing, is more in getting other people ready for it. In other words, my main mission, I think, is to speak to academicians, to the other sociologists, to scholars who consider themselves to be serious scientists.
And tell them what?
And tell them that it's time to stop laughing at the idea that there could be life in outer space, to stop laughing and making fun of people like Eric von Däniken, and start to look seriously at what the man has to say. To begin to see that there is some tremendous